Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk about real estate investing. Today, I'm joined with Leanne Nicholson. Mike and Stefan are both working today. They're 9 to 5, so it's kind of a girl power day. Now, we had originally had a great female investor colleague of mine that I was super excited to talk to, I am still super excited to talk to her and make one of our episodes about her journey and her experiences in real estate investing. But she woke up with a migraine this morning, so we'll give her the day off. And then Leanne came up with the best idea for something that we could do today because we had the time set aside anyways, and make it a real relevant conversation with her and I about what's going on. So why don't you explain, Leanne, what your idea was this morning and what we're going to chat about?
Yeah, sure. So as soon as you had said that we had the canceled time today, but we still had the time slot. So bang, my brain is going, what can we do? What can we do? Because everything is set up for it anyway. So I said, why don't we do an episode? Because it is just the girls today.
Yep.
And how are we as women, real estate investors, with other items going on in our lives, you being a realtor, me being a mortgage agent, both our husbands still have a 9 to 5. So we are leading the charge. How do we do it behind the scenes? How do we make this look so great when, and a lot of times it isn't that great. So I thought, why don't we have a candid conversation? Why don't we talk to the viewers about what life is really like as a woman in our positions?
And I think that's ridiculously relevant. And I know that, again, we've had these conversations before, and there are so many days that it works better than other days, right? And so many days with challenges and with bumps in the road. And it's really hard sometimes. And I can only speak for myself and kind of what it looks like at our house. But I know with you, we're kind of living the same life in different places. It's a challenge some days to kind of juggle everything in the air at the same time.
Exactly.
And you know what? We both have husbands that work, or not husbands. I mean, people are out there with partners and girlfriends and boyfriends and whatever the makeup of your relationships look like. But my investing partner, my business partner, happens to be my husband. He still works a 9 to 5 job as a shift worker, who now travels for business a lot of the time. So that leaves me at home with 3 kids and a dog and a cat and a realtor business and an investing business and a baseball schedule and a hockey schedule and you know what I mean, a university student in our house and all of those kinds of associated things. So there are a lot of days that I live by my calendar, and I feel sometimes that I'm scheduled almost hour to hour, making sure that everybody else has their needs met in a way that they're looking for, and still try to focus some of my time on the business piece of our investing story and the business piece of what I have going on in my realtor space. And some days it's not pretty at all, to be frank. And I mean, there's lots of days that we have wine for lunch, or at least I talk about wanting to have wine for lunch. And yeah, so that's, I think this is really relevant because I think that there's a lot of people out there that are going through the same thing. And maybe don't know how normal it really is. I mean, we were busy well before we became investors. Investors just added a different layer to it.
100%. And we're the same way, right? And then the different projects that we're taking on as well. So we just, a month ago closed on our first short-term rental in Florida. And we have contractors in that house right now. So I am now managing that piece of it. So just like you said, there's the everyday that's continuing ongoing with the family, with the lives and everything else. And then, in different points of our lives, there's different interjections of small projects that are happening. And I mean, actually, it's a big, small project, but
and that's a big part of what's going on at your place, right? You guys are undertaking a huge project. For your first STR, you're on level 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of out of the gates, which not everybody would do or not everybody can do. Exactly. And for a variety of different reasons. And this kind of fit what you guys were trying to do and trying to accomplish and all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't make it any easier right now. Like you're not at the end yet. You're really like, you know what I mean? There are so many moving parts and so many things to oversee. And the challenges of managing a project like that remotely just adds to the pile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ended up thinking that maybe we'd go down once to see the project. And at first we thought not even once, but we were really fooled on that.
Well, that's
Reality
learning
kicked
curve,
in.
right? You don't know
Reality,
what you don't know.
you don't know what you don't know. And reality kicked in. We just, we came back from Florida for the second time for this project. And yesterday we booked tickets to go down a third time for the project. So, and that will be the end of the project. But we still have to go. So then it's juggling. When do we go? When, what makes sense and at what point? And there's
And
a
do you
lot
bring your kids? And do you leave your kids at home? Or like, are there seat sales? Is it expensive to fly at this time of year? Like all of those things. You're not walking to Florida, right?
No.
You're probably not driving either if you only have a certain number of days to play with, right? Like Mike still works. He doesn't have, unlimited days off. He doesn't probably have vacation time that he can book with a couple of days notice. Like I know that's how it is at our place as well. Steff picks his holidays in November for the following calendar year. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he has a little bit of flexibility for maybe a day here or a day there, maybe some flex time. He can start later, work later, to balance out the numbers. But we can't just throw in a 2-week trip to Florida if he hasn't already pre-booked the time off. And that's kind of our reality.
That's exactly it. So how do we manage that? So now we are, like I said, we're kind of the driving force. So you and I, in both of our situations, we're the driving force because we are 100% of our time is this business, right? And our families and everything else. We walked away from our 9-to-5s, which I thought, as soon as I walked away from my 9-to-5, 6 months ago now, I thought I'm going to have all this time in the world. And I'm telling you, I am even busier than I was holding my 9-to-5. And I thought, oh my gosh, like how would I have functioned? And I know you have said the same thing.
Yep. Oh, it's definitely, it's so much busier for me since I left, because when I was still working full time, like in a career job, I would leave and go to work and nothing got done at home. And I knew that, and there was no expectation. So if the dishwasher didn't get emptied, if the laundry didn't get put away, if the grass didn't get cut, not that I cut the grass anyways, but like stuff like that, I knew that my 12-hour shift at work was all about what was going on for those 12 hours at work. And everything else here had to wait. The kids, the cleaning, the cooking, the whatever. And I would get to it when I got home. And if I didn't get to it that night, I would try really hard to get to it the next night.
Exactly.
And that was it. So I knew that I was going to work, and the expectation was that whatever was going on at home was maybe a Steff problem because he was off that day, or you know what, I would deal with it kind of later when I had some time. And then once that was taken away, and it's funny how I think women, we do this to ourselves a lot of the time, is you figure out, oh, I'm home, even though I have a different job and different roles and different responsibilities, I'm just going to do it all. Right. Yeah. So, and I know Francois and I have had this conversation a couple of times. He was a guest on our podcast a few episodes ago, and I'm pretty sure you've had this conversation as well about multitasking and how we all do it and maybe we shouldn't, right?
Exactly.
Because it takes away from the presentness of the moment of what you're doing if you're trying to do 5 different things, right? So I know in the past, I'm super guilty of this, right? I have something on the stove. I'm sitting down on a video call with somebody or on a phone call with an investor, and I'm folding laundry, right? Yeah. And I'm yelling at somebody to let the dog out. And I think inherently that's how I'm built. I don't know how to just sit and do one thing at a time. And I used to be really proud of that and thought, oh, you know what? Like I can do 500 things. But now, I mean, society's expectations of what women are expected to bring to the household, I think have balanced. Mm-hmm. And I think my parents were of that generation where anything that was like from the front door in was kind of my mom's problem, and everything from the front door out was kind of my dad's. Exactly. And we grew up in that kind of house. And I don't think that's the case anymore at all. And I think that we put a ridiculous amount of pressure on ourselves to be that person. And I don't think we should.
No, and that's exactly it. And even just before this podcast where we came on, I said to you, hang on 10 minutes. I have to go put the clothes on the clothesline because it's a really nice day and I need to go outside.
100%. And you know what? While you were gone, I got some dishes done because I know that Jamie's coming home after school to do a foods project with a neighbor that they have to have ready to go tomorrow morning at school. So I'm trying to kind of get that prep in because I know I won't have a lot of time later. And I think that's just how we're built. So I know that kind of trying to focus on the present and be kind of part of the moment is something I really work at. And some days I'm better at it than others. But it's tough to shake that need to do everything all the time thing.
It is 100%. And I learned from different people in my mortgage career, and we've really educated ourselves in doing a lot of self-help and all that kind of stuff, that you have to really look and prioritize and learn your schedules, and learn to say no is a big one.
And that's really difficult for people that don't do that very often.
Exactly. And a lot, I see it in the mortgage business as well. Like, people come to me and say, I have all these strikes against me. Can you help? And I always, yes, I can help. And then, you go through the process, and it's like, I shouldn't have said I can help right out of the gate, because I knew right out of the gate, with all those strikes against you, it probably wasn't a great idea. But I do that because I just have that feeling that maybe this one is going to be different. Maybe I'll see something a little bit different, but I'm totally guilty of it. And
then all of a sudden you're committed to helping somebody that you don't have time for, and you probably can't. Exactly. And then that guilt sets in, right? And that, oh my gosh, I feel bad because I can't help, right? Because that's my role and I want to be a helper. And then, oh my gosh, I feel guilty that I said yes, because it's taking away from what other priorities I have going on. Like, and I know we've gone through the same things here. Not so much Steff, because he's a great sounding board for me, and we're very much a team. But I'm the driver, like at your house, right? I'm the one that kind of comes up with the ideas, and we kind of try new markets, and we meet new people. And Steff is great for supporting that and kind of helping me with that, and let's debrief stuff and kind of pick it apart to see what we really like and what we kind of need to work on. But if I don't start it, it usually doesn't get started, to be truthful. And that's just kind of how it works here. And we're both fine with that. And we live our lives and our marriage and kind of know your roles, right? Know what you're good at and what you bring to the table, and play to that, instead of always trying to make yourself better at something that's just not maybe your strength. So that's how we do it. But at the same time, it's tough sometimes. I know for me, the investing is one of my favorite parts, but that comes last all the time, because you know what, like, there's the kids, there's the pets, there's the husband, there's my job, you know what I mean? Helping other people who want to be investors. And then there's kind of our portfolio. So it's tough sometimes to bring things around. So but it's ongoing. It's definitely ongoing.
And I think one thing that we do in our household is we always say, stay in our lanes. And at first, because I'm that type of personality that, well, I can get it done faster, I can get it done better, I can do it, right? And Mike doesn't have time because he's in his 9 to 5. But I really had to make an honest effort to say, no, these are my lanes, these are his lanes, and I can't go in and out of the lanes. I have to stay in mine.
Well, no, and I mean, at the same time, there's only so many hours in the day. If you're hanging out in someone else's lane, who's doing the work in your lane?
Exactly.
Right? Like, I know there's many nights that I'm up at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, emailing realtors and running numbers on different properties. And it's like, I really wanted to be doing this at 10 o'clock this morning when everybody else in the world was at work and could kind of be there to answer my emails. But that's just sometimes how it works out. So what's the give? Like, have you created a system yet, or a structure, or changed things around that kind of gives you a little bit more of what we're all looking for?
So we implemented different things. Like I said, staying in your lane, and we really carved out lanes. So for example, I love spreadsheets and I do all that kind of stuff. So like for years, I've done the budgeting, I've done the bill payments, I've done everything for the household. And then I started doing it for the rental properties because it just, because I'm just paying bills. But then when I was in my 9 to 5 job, I wasn't as flexible, and Mike has the flexibility to be able to do different things during the day, paying different bills and doing different contracts for the rental side. So I actually let that piece of it go. And I said, okay, Mike, that's your lane now. So my lane is household expenses. I manage all that. His lane is the rental. And it's actually to the point where when we were in Florida, I do have access to the rental bank accounts. 100% I do. But somebody had asked me, would you be interested in doing this venture with us? And I said, I don't know. And, and they said, why? I said, actually, I said, after this Florida short-term rental is complete, I don't know where my bank account stands. And they kind of looked at me funny. I said, it's not my lane. That's Mike's lane.
That's my question, right?
Yeah. So, and it's being able to trust and being able to let that lane go is a big thing that we're really starting to implement, and knowing both of our strengths and weaknesses. So we did a lot of different coaching, and learning that what my strength is probably Mike's weakness, and vice versa. So that's why we make a really good team.
Yep.
And then picking my lanes are my strengths and his lanes are his strengths. So, and then it complements each other.
Yeah. And that really is what a good team does, right? Because I know even before we got into investing, when it came to parenting and just kind of being married and creating a household and all of those things, I'm definitely not good at the things that Steff is really great at, and the same the other way. So we're very complementary, and at the end of the day, I think we're stronger for it. And I mean, if you look at it from like a hockey analogy, you can't have all forwards. Right? Not everybody can score the goals, right? Somebody's got to be a goalie. Somebody's got to be a defenseman. Like, I'm so sorry, we live in a hockey house. That's really like on my brain 24/7, whether I'm watching it or cooking for it or dropping somebody off at it or picking somebody up from it or, cheering in the stands. That's kind of a good place where it can make sense in my head. But if you had everybody on your team doing the same job, you wouldn't be a very good team. Like, you wouldn't win very much, to be honest.
That's exactly it. We've also implemented too. So Mike and I have our lanes. Our kids have lanes too. So, yeah, again, I can do it. I do have a business degree. I can do it. I can do our QuickBooks. I can do our accounting. But where do I have time to do that? I don't. If I want to stay up 24/7, I do, but I don't. So
there's no sustainability if you just do everything either, because all you're going to wind up feeling is tired and resentful that you're doing everything and nobody's helping.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So our solution for that is my oldest, who is 20 years old, just graduated her 2-year program of business in the local college here, and she's going into her 3rd year of business at the university. And she is actually specializing in accounting. So guess what lane her is? She's in.
That much better than that, right? Now, was that something she was interested in before you guys got into the investing piece? Or like, you know what I mean? Did the investing piece kind of drive her there? Or was that already something she would have been looking at?
It was kind of funny that, I'll digress a little bit with how she picked business. And like I said, I have a business degree. Mike has business background as well. So, and she was looking at different options, like being a teacher, being a nurse, and, that kind of stuff. And then I said, why don't you, but her sciences weren't as strong. So, okay, nursing's out, and teacher, well, she have to go away. There was different pros and cons. So I said, why don't you go in the business program? She says, Mom, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I said, well, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be a business. She goes, I don't want to own a business. And I said, well, I have a business degree. I don't own, well, now we have an investing business, but back then I didn't. And then it really got her thinking like, oh, and I said, everybody needs an accountant, no matter if you're in your business for yourself or, everybody needs an accountant or a bookkeeper or something like. So then the wheels started really, because she does like the numbers and the, all that kind of stuff. So she said, no, maybe it does work. And then I said, perfect, because I really do need somebody on my side.
That's awesome. I do. And you know what? You're 100% right. And that, it kind of makes me think. So I don't have a business background myself. I have a psych degree and I have a certification in human resources, which is so vastly different from where we are now. But still applicable, right? Like
100%.
yeah, it's really so interesting how life works. But I came from a house where my dad was a business person and he owned his own business. And I remember watching through the years thinking I would literally rather do anything on the planet than own my own business. Just kind of watching. He was never home, right? He was always busy. He was always stressed out. There was always something going on and he could never relax. So I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what a horrible idea. And now I look back and it's through a different lens and through different experiences. And it's like, he always had the flexibility to do what he needed to do with us, right? We wanted to travel. He could flex his schedule. We had something going on. He could be available because he usually had enough time to kind of make those arrangements. And he wrote his own ticket, right? Like he worked very hard. I mean, before he retired and he did quite well. And him and my mom are very comfortable in their older years, kind of living at camp and enjoying all that retirement has to offer. But all I saw when I was younger was the stress and the tired and the busy and the nonstop. And now it's different generationally as well, right? Like I think there's much more attention paid to the freedoms maybe that weren't paid attention to in the late 70s, early 80s, late 80s, early 90s, like when I was kind of growing up through those times. And it's your status symbols back then were if you had a big house and a nice car and you could go on a holiday once a year, then you were good and you were golden and your kids could, when you go to college and it was going to be fine. And that was kind of like the bar for success. And now here we are, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years later. And it's like, that's not the case anymore. And everything I read and everything that I see in conversations that we have, people don't care as much about those symbols. It's all about freedoms. It's all about time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. You know what I mean? And how to get there and just to be able to do what you want to do when you want to do. And I think that is a lot better for your mental health. I think it's a lot better for your physical health. It's less taxing, but it's also challenging because what can you do that's going to give you the money to be able to do that kind of stuff, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's that middle piece, because you talk to all kinds of kids like Jenna's age or Katie's age, like our daughters. And it's like, well, they just want to be free. They just want to be free and they want to travel and they want to meet cool people and go to neat places. And it's like, okay. And that's amazing. And have all of those experiences, because like us, it's like, I feel like I woke up and I'm 45 and I've got 3 kids and all these mortgages and I don't know where it even came from, really.
What happened?
Oh my goodness. What happened there? But they need to kind of set themselves up properly to be able to pay for that and come back from it to something else that will continue to grow it so they can do those kinds of things.
100%. Yeah. The other thing that we do to try to keep organized is, you can see behind me, I have calendars.
I'm not going to lie. I saw a presentation you did. I want to say it was for maybe Francois' group.
Francois, yeah.
And you did the calendars and all of that. And I watched it and I thought that was amazing. So I have one too.
Yeah. And
so
it's
to inspire me.
It's just to keep you straight. I also have Mike and I share our Outlook account together. Yep. So we have our shared calendar in there. And at any given time, if he's booking a mortgage client appointment or whatever, he can look in the calendar and we're synced together. Yep. So he's not, so it started that we didn't sync together because we had, getting everything organized, and he'd come in and say, Leanne, when can we book this person in? When can we and it's like, we don't have time. So that's just a little piece of time wasted that you can better manage in a leaner environment. Right.
Yeah.
So we do that shared calendar, which is great. I do recommend as well, and I do it myself, is I do have a Calendly that people have access to my calendar, but I only give them access to different slots of my calendar. So my calendar is not open 24/7, 7 days a week. So anybody can just schedule whenever they want. I put my time in there, and my mortgage time is in there, and my time is in there. And I think that's really ultimately important too, that you do need downtime and you do need to walk away, and you do need to go to your kids' hockey game. You do need to go to camp and have that downtime, and you can't be on 24/7. And that's where society, and especially this COVID, is really bringing us to that, exactly like you're right, that you said, Jen, at 10 o'clock at night, I'm sending out emails. Well, 10 o'clock at night, Jen's sending out emails. Jen's working. Yep. So I can talk to Jen anytime because Jen works evenings. She works weekends because she's sending out emails. But I think a lot of it is to make sure you appreciate other people's time as well.
Yeah. And it's a respect thing, right? Yeah. And respect your own family and your own time enough to not give that up to everybody else who needs it. I mean, and there's very few deals out there that you're going to have to deal with something on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock. Maybe sometimes there's like a one-off where, something happens and you definitely need to kind of give it some attention. But the vast majority is you can take that time and make it your own and not have to engage or interact with people that are just looking for, and not to diminish that it's not important stuff. It's all important stuff, but there's degrees of importance at the same time. So if, if Johnny wants to buy a duplex and he wants to talk about cap rates, that doesn't have to happen on a Saturday night at supper time.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. And it's all little tips and tricks and just different ways to kind of slim it down and get rid of kind of the excess around the outside of it. And it creates efficiencies. Mm-hmm. And that to us is really important because time is valuable. And we're trying to raise a family and we're trying to, be as present for them as we possibly can be and do fun stuff because really it all has a shelf life. Like our oldest daughter is almost 19. She's going back into her second year of university. How many summers do we have left where she's at home? Right. So, and that's kind of how I filter everything now. It's like we have an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. Like in 5 years, my day is going to look vastly different than it looks right now. And 5 years, we all know it. I mean, it some days it feels like forever, but for the most part, it's like the blink of an eye and you wake up and it's over. And it's like, well, you know what? Yeah, our investing stuff is still super important and our jobs and our priorities are what they are. But at the same time, I really want to enjoy what we have because I know it won't be the same for much longer.
No, and that's exactly it. And that's why I always say, take the time for yourself and turn the phones off and do that time for yourself. Every year, and now unfortunately my aunt sold the camp, but she was 100% off the grid. So there was no cell service, there was no nothing, and, there's no power or anything. Yep. And we'd spend 3, 4, 5 days there. And it was awesome because you didn't know what was going on in society, which was so amazing just to regenerate, It's
so funny, how quickly the world changed and made everybody so dependent on what's happening everywhere in the world, whereas in the mid 80s, when we were all kids and kind of running through the streets and playing stickball after supper and doing all that stuff you did in 1985, no one had a phone, right? Like, excuse me. I remember my dad would come out the front door and yell my name and I could hear him anywhere in the whole neighborhood. And I was like, oh, guys, I got to go. Like, it's my turn to go home. And that was it.
My funny story, same thing. My mother would go out with a whistle and she'd blow the whistle and we'd know wherever we were, we'd hear the whistle, time to go home. There's no
absolutely. And that's just how you worked it, right? And you didn't know what was happening. There was no Twitter, there was no Snapchat, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook. And it was, as much as I can appreciate the access to information, because this new generation now has access to better information than any generation in the history of time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so amazing because the possibilities for growth are endless and everyone, for the most part, has access. I know that there are some that don't, but for the most part, mainstream society has access to an incredible amount of information. So how can that better grow our children than in generations past? I think it's limitless. And I think that that's really wonderful. But I think that society is starting now to catch up with that balance piece, right? And it's one thing to have your phone all the time, but there's also a lot of really not great stuff that comes as a result of that eats into time. Right. And we talk about time being valuable and time not being wasted and time being used for what you want to use it for. And like everyone else, I catch myself sometimes, surfing, cooking videos or, right. Like if I had a nickel for every time I looked at Steff and went, like, what are you watching? And it's a video or a hunting video or it's a video game, and we all try to be a little bit more present and teach that to the kids too. Right. That it's okay to put the phone down and go hang out outside or, you know what, go pretend it's 1985. At least a little bit.
That's exactly it.
Right? But yeah, no, it's true. And really, I'm a big believer in, you know, trying to make the very best of your time. And it's not going to work every day. I mean, there's just too many moving parts. But you know what, if you try and you can succeed at least a percentage of the time, then that's at least a start.
Yeah. And I said, don't beat yourself over it either. Right. So
Yeah.
if you have goals set out for the day and you only achieved 1 and not 4,
Yeah.
you still had success because you achieved
That's
1.
right.
So don't beat yourself up over it. Right?
Yeah, like focus on what worked. It's so easy to fall into the, oh my gosh, I missed that, or I didn't get that done, or I failed to complete, or I dropped the ball, or whatever. And you know what? There's days like that. There are going to be a lot of days like that, especially in investing, right? And you know what? Instead of focusing on all the bad, give yourself the one thing that worked. And if that one thing that worked is super small, that's okay. Then that's what you hang on to, and you hope that tomorrow's a little bit better.
That's exactly it.
And actually, that just kind of reminded me, we were talking this morning because Leanne and I have been kind of talking all day. Like we talk about social media. So social media in the investing world is huge. Is that fair to say? Right?
Absolutely.
There's networking groups, there's connections, there's meetups, there's, you know, so much is virtual, so much is connecting you into like a real-time community group. And all we see on any of the posts is the amazing stuff, right? I've been guilty of it. I always post when we're at the end of a deal. Pictures look amazing. Look at what we've got. We're growing. It's amazing. Great acquisition. Can't wait to see it perform. But there's likely been like 12 to 16 weeks of me beating my head against a window, hoping it won't break, waiting for the deal to come together in some form.
And drinking wine throughout the day.
Well, I try not to, you know, I do pick the kids up from school, but no, there are a lot of days that it's super frustrating because you think, and I don't know about you, I can only speak about our own experiences, but we've had so many deals where I thought there's no way this is going to close. Like there's no way. I don't see how we can pull it together from like the accountant perspective, the lawyer, the lender, the whoever, you know what? And those days are really stressful. And at the same time, you're raising kids and you've got pets and jobs and all of these other priorities. So something just to be mindful for is that all of the pictures that we all see and we all comment and like them and get maybe a little bit envious because, you know, you want to grow as fast as everybody else looks like they're growing. But really that the behind the scenes stuff is vastly different than just a picture with a really great looking building on closing day.
Well, I can vouch for that our Florida short-term rental, which we're still doing, right from, you know, putting in the offer to the financing we had, and you know, you've heard all the stories. We've had
I was drinking wine for lunch for you.
But on social media, it looks like everything was just smooth sailing.
Yeah. And that's what people see, right? And that I think frustrates a lot of people when they kind of start to get into investing because they'll look, and there are some really great investors out there that have the best marketing that money can buy. And they just make it look easy and they make it look simple and seamless. And all you have to do is have a great attitude and you know what? And start your day. And this is what's going to happen. And that really, it doesn't feel like that at all when you first get started. So it's easy to get discouraged and it's easy to kind of go, oh, why isn't it working for me? Look at all of these other people that it works for. But we're here to tell you that actually it looks nothing like that in those days leading up to, or those months leading up to sometimes where, you know what, you're trying your damnedest to get that deal together to close.
Exactly.
And it's tough. I remember our deal in New Brunswick, we closed 30 days late. And that was the longest 30 days of my life. Like it was every day I was talking to the lawyer in New Brunswick and she was great. And I just went like, today, maybe, you know, like what are we missing? And it was, we were good on our end and everything was signed and there were some issues on the other side. But yeah, it was 30 days. Like I was a basket case. Like I seriously thought there's no way I'm going to see through these deals. And, you know, and then because you have so much time to kind of stew going, oh, like, why isn't this deal closing? Then it's like, did we make a mistake?
You start overthinking.
Was this a bad call? Could we have done better? Why is, and that really messes with your brain sometimes because we're long-term thinkers, right? And it's like, oh, what's this going to do to our buying power down the road? And what if we can't sell it? And what if we have to? And like all of those things start happening and it plays with your brain. and it makes it super challenging to get around some days.
And it's, again, going back to, you're focusing on the negative, which everybody is just, that's how we're wired, is to focus on the negative. And it's really making that conscious effort to focus on the positive.
Yep.
That how much did you learn going through, as crappy as it was, that New Brunswick deal? You've learned a lot, right?
Oh, absolutely. Stuff that we can take with us into every deal we do moving forward, that kind of learning. And it's true. And it's a mindset thing, right? And it's a really tough switch to flip if you've never done it before, or if you don't know how. I mean, and it's not being positive 24/7, because I think that toxic positivity is relevant. And yeah, you know what? There are days where you're not going to be happy, and that's okay, because there's a lot of days where there's not much to be happy about. But maybe it's just kind of wrapping your head around the bigger picture, and knowing that it's going to change, and that, crappy things don't last forever, and they either end up working out or they kind of morph into something else that might be better than what you thought it was going to be anyways.
Yeah. So, and I learned too as well. And you said, you had said it, what if we would have invested somewhere else? What if we would have done things differently? So that's all the negative what ifs, right? So turn it into a positive what if, and it's making that conscious effort.
Yep.
What if this explodes and we go from here to here in our investment business, right?
Yeah.
What if we, this, like I said, what the positive what ifs, right? Yep. But everybody goes to the negative what ifs, but spin it to, and it is a mindset, spin it to the positive what ifs.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's a shift in thinking, but it's totally worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And it takes effort to do. It's not easy that.
Oh yeah, no, most people have to work at it. I know I do. It's tough sometimes. It's easy for me to go, oh, you know what? This isn't going to work. We probably should have tried something different. What's our plan B? How can we kind of get out of this and tweak it to do something else? And Steff's really good with okay, take a deep breath and slow down. And maybe we just need to wait and see. And wait and see, I get, not in every market and in every deal is a good idea. But there definitely is room for it in a lot of places, is just sit and wait. And whether that wait is a couple of days, or whether that wait is a couple of weeks, or whether that wait is a couple of months, the likelihood of you missing the deal of a lifetime is pretty small, right? And you kind of learn as you go when and how to do that.
Exactly.
Right. So you know what? We're at the time mark. Look we just threw a whole new episode in there, just us girls.
Isn't that something?
No, and you know what? I think I'm excited to see this one, because I think there's a lot of really relevant information, and it went by in a flash, and it was just like one of the regular chats we have all the time. Awesome. So anything else you want to touch on, Leanne, before we say goodbye?
No, I just want to reiterate, there's a lot of things that I always say it's smoke and mirrors out there on social media.
100%.
You see all the good stuff. The bad stuff is behind the scenes, and there is a lot of bad stuff. And really reach out to your support systems. We live it 100%. We don't walk the golden road, Yeah,
no. We're as regular as it comes, and we have regular great days and regular bad days, and we're trying to take what we have and next level it. And some days it works really well, and other days it's really a struggle. But you know what? We tried really hard to keep it real and make it a part of Real Talk, that, you know what, we're aware that it's not all amazing, and it's not all closing day pictures with super sappy sentiments that, everything is amazing all the time, because it's really not.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much for the chat this afternoon. I can't wait to do it again.
I know. And I have to say, because Mike's not here, thanks for keeping it real.
Absolutely. And the contact info for all of us will be at the end of the podcast on YouTube, and on the podcast forums. I'm at Jennifer@LakeCityRealty.ca, and Leanne is at
NicholsonMortgages.com.
Perfect. So until next time, everybody, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.